God bless you. This is P. Vic here, and this is my English podcast. I hope you enjoy it. I don't know where you are at in relationship to leadership, but we have all been impacted by some leader or been under someone's leadership. Our parents were our first leaders. Our school teachers, coaches, and even church pastors, teachers, and leaders have poured into our lives. I have always been interested in and drawn to the leadership style of Jesus Christ. Though I admire many leaders in the Bible, Jesus Christ is my hero and my favorite leader. His leadership style was controversial and different from many of the leaders of his day. So, what kind of leader was he? Let's dive in. I worked as a nurse for many years of my life. Most of the time that I worked, it was at Advent Health here in Florida. It is a hospital system, and it's an amazing hospital system. I love their mission statement. It is to extend the healing ministry of Jesus Christ, extending the healing ministry. And one of the things that they taught us was regarding servant leadership, and that we were called to be just like Christ and to minister the way he did. He served as a servant, but he also served as a leader. So, servant leadership has gone mainstream. A lot of people understand and speak about servant leadership. But where did this come from? Robert K. Greenleaf wrote in an essay, The Servant Leader. It was in 1970. And in this essay, he described the new phrase, servant leader. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But let's look at Jesus' word regarding his philosophy or his thought process when it comes to leadership. Matthew chapter 20, verse 24. When the 10 other disciples heard what James and John had asked, they were indignant. Verse 25. But Jesus called them together and said, You know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you, it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. Verse 28, For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So here we explore and see about the word servant. And in verse 26, that word servant is the Greek word diakonos. And diakonos has to do with one that executes the command of another. So it deals with a servant or even an actual minister. Now, we get the word, that word deacon, from this word diakonos, and we know that a deacon is that person that asserts an office by the church, usually or typically a person that cares for the poor and has charge of or distributes the money collected for that use. So there we see Jesus saying it will be different amongst you. So any one of you that are going to be a leader, one of the things you have to do is you have to be a diakonos. So in verse 27, we see another play with the word slave. And that word slave is doulos. Doulos means a slave. I'd like to say that it's a slave of the lowest class or the lowest type. Jesus is teaching us, hey, you want to be first? In a sense, you have to be last. And then we have the next part, which is in verse 28. There's another word there regarding the word serve. So it talks about, he's talking about himself when he says the Son of Man, didn't come here to this earth, to be served, but he came to serve. There's that word diakoneo, to serve others. And in his ultimate service, he gave his life for the ransom of many. And we all know that the greatest illustration of this type of a servant, that Jesus says we have to come and be a servant and serve others, was demonstrated by him in the Last Supper. When the Bible says that he girded himself with a towel and he ended up getting on his knees. Here we have the creator of the universe, the Son of God, literally kneeling down before a weak vessel, before, a bunch of misfits, really, his disciples, and did the job of a doulos, did the job of a slave, that it was typical for them to wash the feet of the guests. It was typical for them to wash the feet of those that would come. And in that, Jesus lowers himself to that position, to teach us his concept of true service. And it's interesting that in that, not only did he wash his disciples' feet, but understand he even washed the feet of Judas, who was the one that was going to betray him. The ultimate, act of service was to wash your disciples' feet, and in this case, even wash the feet of the guy who was going to betray you. That is a true servant. So, to wrap up, even though we don't see in the Bible the words servant leader, we do see this type of leadership that Jesus does exhibit. 1 minute, he is the leader, but yet he wants us to service and to minister to others at a different rate, at a different level. Thank you for listening.